Um, Heather McGhee, former Heather McGhee, former Demus head and now a trustee, and the author of The Sum of Us: What Racism Costs Everyone and How We Can Prosper Together. She appeared with Alex Wagner on MSNBC for an interview. And I found this interview to be so powerful. And there is one particular statement that she made that I want you guys to listen to because it's prescient. And if you can understand it in detail, there is so much further we as a society, we as a unified American society could move to. Check this out, and then we'll take it on the other side.
There's a huge amount of political and therefore economic profit to be made by convincing white voters that anything that is good for other Americans, even and including them, is somehow a threat, right? The idea, the zero-sum idea that we can't all progress together, that in fact progress for people of color must be a threat to white people. So take the student loans, for example. Who benefits from an historic up to $20,000 in student loan debt being canceled? Well, 20 million borrowers, the vast majority of whom are working and middle class people, the majority of whom are white. Does it attack the racial wealth disparity? Yeah. Why? Not because black people are just so lazy that we borrow a lot, but because of a racial wealth divide that was created by public policy. A racial wealth divide that means that today a black college graduate has less wealth on average than a white high school dropout. So the bottom line here is that these policies, the idea of having voting rights in the country where politicians don't pick their voters, but voters pick their politicians. The idea of having affordable college, it's good for everyone. Yeah. And yet conservatives want to break a working class multiracial coalition to make white voters side with their color instead of their class. They want to profit economically from that rigged political system. And so they keep sort of hammering this point, this lie of the zero sum, that we can't all be beneficiaries of government in the public interest.
There are two very important points that she makes there. Conservative leadership attempting to have people vote their color and not their class. That's one thing. The other one is that the difference in wealth expressed on a racial basis is directly a result of public policy, redlining among them, some farmers being able to get loans while others couldn't, same with student loans, etc. So all the nature of this entire process is systemic. And it is one thing that the Republican leadership doesn't want its folks to understand because they want to always have that tool. In other words, if we can keep you looking at the other person, those others that look differently from you, and somehow reflect the problem as being theirs, as opposed to the reality that we are in a class boat, really, in which the rest of us continuously serve the few, and as the few screw up and gets into problems, we pay that excess pain to solve their problems. Again, let's look at today's problem, right? Inflation is not something that is really needed. Do we have spot shortages? Yes. Do we have some supply chain issues because of plants not being open or shipping not being open across the oceans from the people that are manufacturing our products? Yes. But who are the ones responsible for all of that? We are the ones who decided to manufacture at all costs overseas so that we wouldn't have to pay our local folks a living wage. We are the ones who decide that we are going to create something known as just-in-time inventory so that as soon as the product gets here, it's ready to be sold or placed into a machine or whatever, instead of keeping inventory the way we did before to save a few more bucks for the corporatocracy, the shareholders, etc. It is they who decided that they weren't going to since the 1979 when we've been talking about transitioning from fossil fuels onto green energy. In fact, their god, Ronald Reagan, removed solar panels from the roof because he wanted nothing to do with it, to give countries like China the lead in photovoltaic cells, etc. So they created all these problems that manifested itself as soon as we had a pandemic. And who pays the bill? We do, all of us, right? We pay the bill in higher interest rates. We pay the bill in higher inflation because remember, when we pay higher inflation, that money doesn't just go to for really things that cost more. It simply goes into the pockets of those who raise the prices. That's a dirty little secret they never tell you. And when we pay, and instead of forcing those people to not have the ability to gouge us, the Fed says, okay, the way we are going to control that is let supply and demand work. We will go ahead and increase your interest rates so that you, the American people, have to stop buying so that we can force them to reduce their prices or keep their prices steady. In other words, we don't have the pelotas to go ahead and tell the private sector you won't do that because you're hurting most Americans. We're going to make Americans feel further pain in giving them more money as they get their prices steady. So this zero-sum gain is it's a very important concept for us to understand. If we come together and start to work together as opposed to allowing them to create these fallacies as expressed in the sum of us, where they make forgiving student loans something of envy for those who didn't decide to go to college, where they do all these things in the attempt to separate us so that we cannot put our attention, assign our eyes to those who are actually screwing us all. We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead, number one, subscribe to our channel, and number two, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.